For the introductions of Islam, Islam is one of the 6 official recognized religions in Indonesia. Islam is a religion that has the most populated people in practice in Indonesia. The process of religions will do well for the nations by including these elements include social, cultural, political aspect of religion because those can lead to better nations in the future. The efforts to improve the Islamic educational systems to a better education will begin in order to face the digital technologies, in order to improve the conditions of Indonesian human resources and human beings, and the last to ensure a better futures for these nations. First, we would like to discuss about the concept of Islam as a mercy of all creations. Islam is a religion that teaches how to give an empathy and merciful towards all of the creations, in which Muslims with other beliefs, friends, animals, and enemies. It is called as Rahmatan lil Alamin. This statement says about Islam have a merciful thoughts in which it is discussed in Al-Quran, which is the primary resources of Islam. In the verse of Al-Anbiya 107 says, "And we didn't send you Muhammad, but as a mercy to all of this universe." It means that Islam learning about given mercy to the whole universe. Mercy is the point of how to give an affections, love, empathetic, and others that can give safety to the all humans being.
Hello guys, my name is Farfin Akbar, and now I'm gonna explain about the history of Islam in Indonesia. As you guys know, Islam is the largest religion in Indonesia with 86.7% of Indonesian population identifying themselves as Muslim in a 2018 survey. Indonesia is the most populous Muslim majority country with approximately 231 million adherents. Indonesia. From the first one, I'm gonna explain about theories on the coming of Islam to Nusantara. The first theory is Gujarat theory. According to this view, the process of spreading Islam to Indonesia began in Gujarat in the 7th or 13th centuries. Gujarat is a province of Western India that borders the Arabian Sea. Most of the published scissors of this theory are academics from the Netherlands. However, he claimed that those who brought Islam to Indonesia were not directly descended from Arab, but rather from Gujarati traders who had adopted Islam and trade eastward, including Indonesia. A prominent Dutch Orientalist named Snoep Hurgronje later reiterated and popularized Pizza Naples notion. He said that Islam had already grown in the Indian subcontinent for centuries prior to Arab traders. The Gujarat opened trading links with Indonesia. Hurgronje believed that the Arab invasion had already happened in the distant past. The majority of the Arabs that arrived were descended from the Prophet Muhammad, who prefixed his name with the title Sayyid or Sharif. The second one is the Mecca theory. Claims that Islam was brought into Indonesia directly from Mecca or Arabic in the 1st century Hijri or the 7th century. This process took place. One of Indonesian intellectual and writers, Haji Abdul Karim Amrullah, known as Hamka, was the one who first proposed this notion. In 1958, Hamka voiced his opinion in a speech given at the State Islamic University Centennial celebration in Yogyakarta. He disproved every presumption made by Western academics who claim that Islam indirectly reached Indonesia via Arabic. And the third one was Persian theory. Claims that Indonesia was the recipient of process from the Persian or Persian, now Iranian region. Hossein Jajaningrat, a historian from Banten, is the theory's creator. Hussein's analysis for his argument centered more on the shared cultural development of the Indonesian Persian. The Indonesian Islamic community exhibit these cultural parallels, including Hussein bin Ali, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, died on the 10th anniversary of Muharram or Ashura, a Shia holiday establishment at Pariaman in West Sumatra. The word Ar-Kofin originates in Arabic and is rendered in Persian. Second one is other traditions are mystical teaching that share a great deal in common, such as of Sheikh Siti Jenar from Central Java, both of and Sufi al-Halaj from Persia. Unsurprisingly, both of them were given the death penalty by local authorities, since their beliefs were deemed to be incompatible with the Islamic monotheistic and to be a threat to sociality and political security. Use the term iron in Arabic spelling to indicate that someone is studying the Quran early on. Sin without teeth originate in Persia, while sin with the teeth originate in Arabic. In Greek, a gravestone for Malik Saleh in 1297 and Malik Ibrahim 14 and 19 was ordered from Gujarat. In this intense Gujarat theory and Persian theory are virtually identical. Hussein also cited the similarity between the lettering carved on gravestone used in early Islamic cemeteries in Indonesia, which is consistent with Muqtadas theory. Another resemblance is that most Muslims in Iran and Muslims in Indonesia both follow the Shafi'i. Now I'm gonna explain about the spread of Islam to Nusantara between 1200 and 1600. Although Muslims had traveled to Indonesia before the Muslim era, it is believed that the spread of Muslims in Indonesia started somewhere in the 11th century. By the end of 16th century, Islam had assimilated and reflected Buddhism and Hinduism as the main religion in Java and Sumatra. The other islands were mostly enemies at this time. The only Bali had majority of Hindus. They would later adopt Islam in Christianity in the 17th and 18th century. Increasing economic connection outside of the archipelago contributed to the spread of Islam. Typically, traders and the royal family of major kingdom were the first to practice the new religion. Islam had already taken root in North Sumatra by the end of the 13th century. In Northeast Malaya, Brunei, the southern Philippines, among some of East Java courtiers by the 14th, and in Malacca and other parts of the Malay Peninsula by the 15th. Although it is well known that the spread of Islam started in the western part of the archipelago, the Shan evidence implies that the process was difficult and slow rather than a continuous wave of conversion through neighboring regions. Despite being one of the most important events in Indonesia's history, historical data is sparse and typically uninformative, making it difficult to fully comprehend the spread of Islam in the country. Academics disagree widely regarding the implication of the conversion of Indonesian population. More complex issues like how the new religion influenced lifestyle or how profoundly it affected civilization cannot be explained by the fact at hand. For instance, one cannot assume that just because a king was identified as Muslim, the process of Islamization in that region was finished. In Indonesia, the process was on and is still going. The third one about the early modern period of development in between 1600 and 1945. The Dutch entered the region in the 17th century. Attracted by its wealth established through the region's natural resources and trade. The entering the Dutch resulted in a monopoly of the central trading ports. However, this helped the spread of Islam as a local Muslim traders relocated to smaller and remoter ports, establishing Islam into the rural province. Towards the beginning of the 20th century, Islam became a rallying banner to resist colonialism. European expansion during this time helped permit the adoption of steam-powered transportation and printing technology. As a result, Indonesia and the rest of the Islamic world, especially the Middle East, now communicate much more frequently. The number of pilgrims increased rapidly in Mecca to the point where Indonesia was distinctly referred to as a rise of the Hejaz. Additionally, there was an upsurge in student-scholar exchange. During the middle of 1920s, some 200 Southeast Asian students, mostly Indonesian, were enrolled at Cairo University, and about 2,000 Saudi citizens were of Indonesian heritage. The core of religious instruction in pesantren had been those who had returned from the Middle East. Concurrently, a number of newly founded religious thought and movement in the Islamic world had inspired the Islamic current in Indonesia, in particular Islamic modernism, which was inspired by Islam scholar Muhammad Abduh, aimed to return to the original scripture of the religion. The modernist movement in Indonesia had criticized the syncretic nature of Islam in Indonesia. It advocated for the reform of Islam and the elimination of perceived un-Islamic elements within the tradition. The movement also aspired to incorporate elements of modernity into Islam, and for instance, built schools that combine un-Islam and secular curricula, and was unique that if trained women as priests for women. Through the activity of the reformers and the reaction of their opponents, Indonesian society became more firmly structured along communal rather than class line. And the fourth one, I'm gonna explain about the Islam in the post-independence between 1945 until now. Following Islam in the independence in 1945, Indonesia rose to become the second largest Muslim majority nation in the world. After Bangladesh and Pakistan split apart in 1971, it became the nation with the largest Muslim population on earth. The greatest change to Muslim society, numerous phases of society occurred after independence. This is due to the independence of the country, the rise in illiteracy and educational achievement among Muslims, financial support from the Middle East, and the rapid trade between Muslim nations. Indonesia has gotten even closer to the epicenter of Islamic intellectual activity thanks to the subsequent expansion of the Muslim society. Through the intellectual contact between their foreign contemporaries, a number of scholars and writers have contributed to the development of Islam interpretation within the Indonesian environment. After independence, there was a lot of dispute about Islam's place in politics, which had led to a lot of friction. The primary points of the debate centered on how Islam was positioned in Indonesia's constitution by including the Jakarta Charter, which require Muslims to follow Sharia. Islamic groups have sought to elevate Islam to the position of supremacy inside the constitutional framework, with the installation of the most pluralist constitution according to the Pancasila philosophy, which was considered non-Islamic. The Sukarno regime disputed this fight for the constitutional change persisted, but ultimately Indonesia adopted a civil law in place of an Islamic one. Other instances saw the manifestation of the animosity toward the Sukarno regime. During the New Order, there was an intensification of religious belief among Muslims. Initially hoped as the ally of the Islamic group, the New Order quickly became the antagonist following its attempt to reform educational marital legislation to more secular-oriented code. This made strong opposition with marriage law left as Islamic code. As a result, Suharto also attempt at consolidating Pancasila, and it still won. The third one about the early modern period of development in between 1600 and 1945. The Dutch entered the region in the 17th century, attracted by its wealth established through the region's natural resources and trade. The entering the Dutch resulted in a monopoly of the central trading ports. However, this helped the spread of Islam as a local Muslim traders relocated to smaller and remoter ports, establishing Islam into the rural province. Towards the beginning of the 20th century, Islam became a rallying banner to resist colonialism. European expansion during this time helped permit the adoption of steam-powered transportation and printing technology. As a result, Indonesia and the rest of Islamic world, especially the Middle East, now communicate much more frequently. The number of pilgrims increased rapidly in Mecca to the point where Indonesia was distinctly referred to as Rise of the Hejaz. Additionally, there was an upsurge in student scholar exchange. During the middle of 1920s, some 200 Southeast Asian students, mostly Indonesian, were enrolled at Cairo University, and about 2,000 Saudi citizens were of Indonesian heritage. The core of religious instruction in pesantren had been those who had returned from the Middle East. Concurrently, a number of newly founded religious thought and movement in the Islamic world had inspired the Islamic current in Indonesia, in particular Islamic modernism, which was inspired by Islam scholar Muhammad Abduh, aimed to return to the original scripture of the religion. The modernist movement in Indonesia had criticized the syncretic nature of Islam in Indonesia. It advocated for the reform of Islam and the elimination of perceived un-Islamic elements within the tradition. The movement also aspired to incorporate elements of modernity into Islam, and for instance, built schools that combine un-Islam and secular curricula, and was unique that if trained women as priests for women. Through the activity of the reformers and the reaction of their opponents, Indonesian society became more firmly structured along communal rather.
The basic teachings of Islam. Islam comes from the Arabic word, and its definition is surrender, submission, commitment, and peace. Therefore, Islam can be described as a way to. The 5 pillars of Islam. First of all, we have Shahada, which is the declaration of faith, and it is where the witness has to testify that there is no God except one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet or messenger. The second one, we have Salat, or prayer, and it is where Muslims have to pray 5 times a day in the Arabic language. The prayer needs to perform Salat with a sajadah, following the direction of Makkah. The third one, we have Zakat, or almsgiving, and it is where we have to donate 2.5% of our wealth to the less fortunate. The fourth one, we have Saum, or fasting, and it is where we have to fast in the month of Ramadan, which is based on the Islamic lunar calendar. Every Muslim must not eat, drink, or do any kind of sexual relationship starting from dawn until dusk. And for the fifth one, we have Hajj, or pilgrimage. It is where Muslims make a pilgrimage to Makkah at least once in their life to the Kaaba. The 6 articles of faith. For the first one, we have belief in one God, Tawhid, and it is where Muslims believe that there is only one God, which is Allah, and there is no comparison to Allah. For the second one, we have belief in angels, Malaika, and it is where Muslims believe that Allah sends his messages to mankind through angels. Angels are made from light and only obey to Allah. Examples of the angels inside the Quran are Jibril, who brings good news, and Mikael, who is a companion or friend to humanity. For the third one, we have belief in the prophets and the messengers. God chose the prophets to send his message to mankind. It is believed that Allah communicates to his prophets through angels. For the fourth one, we have belief in the holy books, and it is where Muslims believe that the Quran is a source of guidance, which is to help them know what is right and wrong. For the fifth one, we have belief in the Day of Judgment, and it is where Muslims believe that they are responsible for their actions. God can punish those who have stolen or hurt other people on earth on the Day of Judgment. There will be a weight of goodness and evil, so they will be either given a reward or get punished for what they did. For the sixth one, we have belief in the divine decree, Al-Qadar, and it is where Muslims believe that God knows everything that we do. He also knows what we do before we even do it. Humans have complete control of all of our actions, although God knows everything that has happened or will happen in the future.
Hi everyone, my name is Aranindya Cahyadewi Meswari, and today I will do a presentation about Islamic branches in Indonesia, Islam has a number of branches, each with a distinct past and present. Some of these branches include Shia, NU, and Muhammadiyah. Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama have the most Muslim followers in Indonesia right now. In addition to the two sects of Islam, we hear that there are many emerging sects of Islam that main teachings and worship procedures that are contrary to the guidance of the Quran and the Prophet's hadith. Outside Muslims, including their own parents, are considered infidels and unclean by LDII. The Ahmadiyya sect claimed to have its own paradise in Qadian and Robah, and the certificate of the paradise plot is sold to its followers at a high price. Shia sect that permit mut'ah or contract marriage and haram marriage with people from other sects. One of the Islam branches in Indonesia is Shia. Shia claim that Prophet's companions, with the exception of Sayyidina Ali, are false. The Shia were divided into numerous groups. According to the Shia sect, the Quran is currently undergoing changes and reductions. While the original is in Al-Imam al-Mastur position, or Shia Imamiyah. Shia sect does not practice hadith except from the Prophet Muhammad's family line, or Ahlul Bayt. Furthermore, the Shia allow mut'ah marriage, also known as contract marriage, which is husband-wife marriage at the agreed-upon time. The second one, there's Nahdlatul Ulama. The formation of NU was an attempt to organize the previously organized roles of ulama and pesantren, in order for the clergy's work area to be further improved, developed, and expand. NU believed that not all traditions are bad, obsolete, or have no contemporary relevance, and the traditions can occasionally serve as inspiration for the emergence of Islamic modernization. Scholars typically have a congregation or community of citizens who become their group, with close ties of relationship formed in the pattern of Kiai-Santri relationships. Particularly, in the community in the Islamic boarding school environment, this relationship pattern is consistent with Nahdlatul Ulama's dakwah pattern, which focus on cultural dakwah. This results in the struggle and direction. The third one, there's Muhammadiyah. Muhammadiyah was created on good governance and well-structured existence, starting with the central, provincial district, sub-district, and all the way down to the villages. Each level is also effectively managed. All of Muhammadiyah Da'wah activities are supported by structured management. The spirit of Muhammadiyah movement is to build a more advanced and educated social order and public education, demonstrating that Islam is not only personal and static religion, but also a dynamic religion, positioned as a detailed system of human life. The formation of Muhammadiyah is heavily based on Quran comments, including the letter Al-Imran, verse 104, which reads, "And let there be among you a group of people who call to righteousness, enjoin the right and forbid what is evil, they are the lucky ones."
Next, we would like to talk about the Islamic education in Indonesia in two ways, the classic ways and the modern ways. The classic Islamic educational systems start by the time of the arrival of Islam in Indonesia. It started to change to be modern kind of Islamic educations, following by the open mind reforms and the use of digital technologies. First, we would like to talk about the classic ways in the Islamic education in Indonesia. It is started by a peaceful method and continues by traders and religious teachers. It is used traditional systems which there are not have any changes, and the study mostly use the lecturer methods and teachers as the central parts of the studies. And then we would like to talk about the modern Islamic educations that start with the human concept in Islam, Islamic view about the science and technologies. and the study mostly used on the lecturer and all the components as the center of learning, including the students and the environments. And it is safe because it would have a great cognitive thoughts, great psychomotors, and effective thoughts to the students.
Hi, my name is Sri Bintang Radia, and now I'm gonna explain about Islamic culture in Indonesia. Type of Islamic tradition and cultures in the archipelago. There are several local countries in a society that are still part of Islamic tradition and culture. Among the many cultures and tradition that exist in this country, this archipelago Islamic tradition culture include various forms of art, starting with a local art and culture in the art of building, crafting or painting, music and dance, and finally literature or script. The following is a description of the various historical relics of Islamic tradition and culture that can still be seen or present today. The first Islamic in Indonesian culture is the traditional ceremony. This is an annual tradition and cultural event, like a place to congregate and trade during the day or night. This event is organized by residents of Yogyakarta and Surakarta. However, there were still few Muslim in the area at the time. Finally, Sunan Kalijaga interposed and include Islam teaching throughout the event. The term sekaten originate in Arabic, specifically Shahadatain, two sentences of creed, which means that in the event that the Javanese people were given materials to study Islam, which include saying two sentences of creed. But even so, because of the Javanese could not pronounce Shahadatain fluently, the pronunciation changed to sekaten. This sekaten event also includes player-led gamelan performance. However, because at the time the Javanese had not can pronounce fluently Shahadatain, the pronunciation become a bit different, sekaten. The second, building arts. Before Islam, many kingdoms possessed such huge area, let us call the square. After the arrival of Islam, the existing art of building architecture was preserved, though it also had some change, so that the original form is not lost. Starting with the shape of the merunya storied roof, which is still preserved because in addition to adding the beauty of mosque, it has many doors, which means that anyone can enter from any direction, thus preserving the ducts in the mosque. Along with the calligraphy decoration, the mosque walls and separate rank mihrab, located at the front of the congregation, that serves as a place of the mosque imam to lead the 5 daily prayers. Then there was a pavilion. And because not many people had embraced as Islam at the time, the pavilion was used to learning tool to learn Al-Quran. In addition, there was a gong or drum sounded as a signal for call to prayer, heard because it was prayer time. Mosque, other building arts in the presence of palace building, royal palace, in which there are various combinations of religious style. Both Hindu, Islamic, and local people believe so that the shape and the building of the palace is better and has unique characteristics such as Yogyakarta Palace, Surakarta Palace, Kasepuhan Palace, Mangkunegaran Palace, Mangkunegaran Palace, King of Goa Palace, and so on. Of course, the art of building will reveal that there are numerous relics of Islamic tradition and culture in this archipelago. Third, carving or calligraphy. The third factor, which has become a Islamic tradition is in this archipelago, is related to art. This is because in the most cases someone can select or given a selection versus to be engraved or use calligraphy. So with this verse, we amazed not only by the beauty of the art but also by the grave verses of Quran that have deep meaning and can remind us Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala greatness. This carving or calligraphy is also commonly seen on the walls. There are also walls, roof, and mihrab in the mosque, located in the mosque. Fourth, the dance and music. Of the various tribes in the archipelago, of course, there are only have their own dance and music art. These two arts have been incorporated into numerous Islamic tradition and cultures. This is typically evident when tribe or community perform its customary rituals. There we can discover many musical genres and dance with wide range of motion. There are several places where Islamic tradition and culture are consistently prepared through dance and music. As an illustration, consider the Salawat Kompang reading, which is accompanied by a dance with a nevertheless that is nevertheless relevant to the Salawat reading. As for the form of this dance, it is a game of dabus and sudati. In this art, the dancers also sing song in the form of praise or salawat to Prophet Muhammad. The arts mentioned above developed in former royal centers such as Minangkabau Kingdom, the Aceh Kingdom, and Banten Kingdom. The fifth, literary arts. Another heritage or culture that was left behind by earlier scholar is this literature. The term tembang refers to the literary or sculpture art in Japanese. It is known as tembang and gancaran in Sumatra. In contrast to Sumatra literature, which is typically written in Arabic letters, this Japanese literary work written in ancient Japanese characters. Books or publications containing religions were created from these literary works, or they may have taken the form of old poems published in their particular regional language or Asian language. The impact of Islamic culture and tradition on Indonesian society. From here, these customs and culture have an impact on the custom and culture that were there in the past. These are few of the influence. After the current culture introduce a new cultural flow regarding both religion and civilization. 2. Establishing a new a unique draw of for all groups, including kings or other leader traders and islanders, because it has the capacity to establish religious beliefs consistent with Indonesian national attitudes. Number 3, establishing theological pillars through the monoistic preaching of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prophethood, as well as the other teaching in the shape of Islamic tenets with imposing one role on other. As a result of Islam teaching covering wide range of life issues, make people feel secure and at ease around it. Starting with legal system, religion, and way of life. Number 5, the influence of literary arts that make Indonesian people more enthusiastic in learning Arabic to learn Hijaiya later to facilitate language transfer. And number 6, explore the stories or heroic legend found in ancient literary books that exist in Islamic religions. Next. And now we're gonna talk about Muslim role in Indonesian politics. Muslim role in Indonesian independence. Muslim have always led the front in the fight against colonialism with his critical role in the development of Indonesian independence. Haji Agus Salim was successful in getting Egypt to recognize Indonesian independence, both de jure and de facto. The goal of Indonesian diplomatic mission in Arab nation is to obtain their recognition of Indonesian independence. In addition, Indonesia also has an interest in forging strong connection with Arab countries in order to face the UN Security Council session in August 1947. In its development, Agus Salim was successful in getting Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and Arab Saudi and Yemen to recognize independence of the Indonesian delegation team. To success, the Indonesia diplomatic mission in Arab countries cannot be separate from the ability to master the Arabic language and Agus Salim argumentation skill. The challenge of Islamic political parties in modern days. Islam has always been an important role of Indonesian state. Many ulamas have contributed to become important officials in Indonesia. Gus Dur is the fourth president of Indonesia. He is descended from the founder of NU, Muhammad Hashim Asy'ari. While serving as the general chair of NU, Gus Dur consistently continued to fight for NU nationalism. In the current era, Ma'ruf Amin ascended the general chair of NU to become vice president of Indonesia for the period of 2019 until 2024. It can be seen how important role of Muslim in Indonesian politics is. Although the contribution of Muslim in Indonesia politics is very good, there are several threats to Muslim political parties toward the 2024 president election. First, Islamic political groups are unable to translate their ideology into the political platform. This poses a challenge to Indonesian Islamic political parties. The rationale for this making religion the ideology of a political party necessitates exploiting the core principle of religion in order to garner popularity and political support. Additionally, factualism, internal dispute, and leadership crisis continue to exist in Islamic political organization. According to Ahmad, who spoke in online conversation on Tuesday, April 19, 2022, internal dispute between parties have reduced the amount of vote cast. Frequently, they split as into PKS or Partai Keadilan Sejahtera and Parti PAN, Partai Amanat Nasional parties, and then Umat parties and Gelora parties. Moreover, the identity crisis and the prosperity toward political pragmatism, swing voters, post-truth politics, and money politics are a few examples, Ahmad stated. Finally, there aren't enough resources, particularly financial ones, to manage a big budget nationwide competition. These four issues will be difficult for Indonesian Islamic parties to overcome in the general election of 2024. Thank you.
Muslim as majority and minority in Indonesia. Islam has the most followers in Indonesia, accounting for 237.53 million people, or roughly 86.9% of the total human population. This is why Islam is known as the majority religion in Indonesia. While the other five religions are considered minorities. Given the large number of followers, we frequently hear that Indonesia is a Muslim country. Religious minorities are frequently discriminated against because of the significant difference. As a result, many people from minority religions felt excluded and disliked the majority religion's followers. To avoid this, in international law, rules and regulations to protect minorities' rights have been established. Non-discrimination provisions are also included in regional human rights laws. As a result, as people that are going to interact with people of other faiths, we must tolerate each other. Thank you.
The role of Indonesian Muslim in the global context. The most obvious change in the 2 decades, which is the fall of the Suharto regime, has been the quickly growing influence of religious interpretations and implementations coming from the Middle East, more precisely the Gulf states, directing spectators to pronounce the Arabization of Islam in Indonesia. The peak of the event is a demonstration in Indonesia, which is called Actions in Defense of Islam. It commenced on 2 December 2016, and millions of people went down to the streets. People were wearing white attires, and the style was related to the Arab Gulf countries, and it might be one of the most successful demonstrations in Indonesian history. Reformation and after, new Islamic movements have consolidated. The Islamists were given freedom of speech in the last decade of the New Order. The most momentous movement is the Partai Keadilan Sejahtera (PKS) and the Partai Keadilan (PK), which is an Indonesian Muslim brotherhood that turned into a political faction. This is a well-known movement, and they are loyal to foreign leadership. They are greatly different from many previous Indonesian Muslim organizations. Thank you very much for watching our presentation.